Robert Karpathios here, the creator of the Ditch Your Dad-bod Blueprint, and welcome to another episode of Own Your Life. This week, you're about to meet one of our top VIP fat loss students and learn how he torched nearly 20 pounds of stubborn belly fat and got completely chiseled, all because he bet on himself and went all in. Enjoy.
I was actually born in Stratford, Ontario. That's where I grew up. And it was like a rural property, about 5 or 6 acres. So I grew up in a home that was out, like not a city home, it was more of a country home, and there were some chores to do and looked after the property. And as I got a bit older, like there was a lot of lawn to cut. And I remember we planted a bunch of trees along the laneway, and my dad was a construction worker, right? He had his own company. So there's many times he'd be gone for the week. He'd have a list for me of like, these are the 4 or 5 things I need you to do when I'm gone. And they would be, hey, we planted all these trees. You got to water those trees once every 2 or 3 days, right? These giant buckets, like a 5-gallon pail, and I'm like 8 or 9, and I'm walking, halfway across 2 acres, trying to, that's what you had to do, right? And you were doing it in May and June and July, like in the hot weather. And I haven't even talked about, picking stones, right? So was a whole other fun adventure, right? So, but it wasn't all just work, right? Like we had fun too, like wearing the tires off my bike as a kid, going up and down the laneways and stuff like that. And I joined hockey sort of later on, and I was behind in hockey, which was fine, but my friends were playing it, so it was fun, right? And nutrition there was no intention about a nutrition. There was no thought process, other than like, we didn't eat junk. Junk costs more too, right? Like it was cheaper to buy the potatoes. It was cheaper to buy the rice, and especially more in a rural setting, right? Like you could find that stuff pretty readily. We had gardens, right? And I grew pumpkins, and we grew potatoes, and we grew tomatoes, and we grew sunflowers, and all sorts of stuff. We had a huge garden growing up, right? And so that was also, in terms of, getting in touch with your food as a young person, that was a pretty good way of doing it. I remember going to my parents one night, and I asked them, I said, I totally thought this was gonna get shot down. I said, would I be able to like borrow Dad's truck and drive to Kitchener 3 days a week to run track? And they didn't even bat an eye. They were like, yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine. There was 4 levels. So you had your counties, then you had like a regional, then you had OFSA regional, and then you had OFSA, right? You had to qualify for each one. You had to be top 4 in your event to move on, right? Grade 10, I didn't even get out of counties, and then I went to regionals in grade 11, everywhere. Anyway, every year I moved up. And so it gets to this last year, and I'm at OFSA regionals. I've never made it to OFSA, and that's my goal in high school, is to make it to OFSA for track, right? It's a big goal of mine. I've been working for 3-4 years towards it. I go into this regional meet, and I'm ranked like 6th or 7th. I had the race of my life. I finished 2nd. The guy who beat me beat all of us by like a mile. He'd go on to be an Olympian. But there was nothing there about nutrition. Again, not on the table. Even with like coaches who were training people to go to like Pan Am Junior Championships, to go to national championships, to go to, eventually set these younger athletes up to be Olympians, right? Like, at least for me, they weren't talking about nutrition, generally speaking, right? One of my sort of acquaintances, who I remember I played a lot of soccer with him, he said, I'm gonna be going to post-secondary. It was like a private college, and it was to do police foundations, but it didn't start till February. He's like, I'm just working a bit more, making a bit more money. And he's like, it's a 12-month program, and you do police foundations, like a straight 12-month through the summer and everything. I got thinking about it. I'm like, well, I was trying to do business stuff before, and now I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. Like the law, I never really thought about that, right? So I went and did that. I knew I wanted to still run, right? I wanted to try to compete, and I also was thinking, like, how far am I gonna go in a police service without a degree? I applied to Windsor, the University of Windsor, for the criminology programs. Windsor track in the 2000s and in the late 90s and the 2000s, Windsor track and field was the equivalent of Western football. They were the powerhouse, and I knew I'd be lucky to make the team. second year I trained with them and I raced a lot with them. In the second year, I made that provincial team. So that was like just a fantastic experience. And then well, let's see if I can get into law school. Let's start putting the application now. So by the time I finish my undergrad, 4 years in my undergrad, maybe they'll let me in on the second or third try, right? And they let me in right away. In your late 20s, it was a lot of fun, and I'm living with my then girlfriend, now wife, and we're just having fun and making some good money and just loving life, right? And at this point in time, now you've been a lawyer for 6 or 7 years. I shifted to a smaller office, but that office was a lot busier, and there were some unreasonable demands. And then I lost my dad in 2016. Some people, like, it was really stressful, right? And some people put weight on, right? And that's how they deal with it. I think I weighed 161, 162 pounds. And like, I'm over 6 feet tall. And I took leave from my job about 6 months after my dad passed away, but I knew things needed to change. One of the guys who's in the group is Sean Quigg. He's got this picture of, like, he's got a shirt off and he's in these shorts or something like that. And I'm like, how in the hell did you get that definition? Here I am, I'm doing this Beachbody stuff, trying to get the Beachbody, right? Don't have it. And I'm just like curious. I connected with him and he went through the program he was in with Coach Rob. And he told me about how to get connected with Coach Rob and sort of the broad parameters of the program. So I thought, okay, let's give this a go. I started the program in February, so it's been about 9 months now. I lost about 17 pounds, but that was 17 pounds of fat because my body fat percentage went down 5.5 or 6%, and I'm now back and I'm building muscle. So I'm willing to bet that I've probably packed on 10 or 12 pounds of muscle, right, in terms of that swap. You get into the program and there's the check-ins and you meet the people who are working with you towards the same goals, right? And this is a holistic program. If you look back at my experiences, high school, community, club, team, university, community, track and field, like-minded people all pushing together. Then I'm out in the wilderness, other than the odd, co-ed team here and there, you're by yourself. Like, I love the hacks. I love the post where some guy's like, look what I found at, like, Real Canadian Superstore. Check out these flatbreads. Or, go get your Premier Protein. They got a different flavor if you go to the Mississauga Costco, right? Like, that's fantastic, right? Like, I didn't have anybody telling me this stuff before, right? So, yeah, I think that's something that I underestimated, was the value of the community. When I work out, it's down in the basement, on the one side of the basement. The other side is this, like, playroom, hangout area for my kids. In the evenings, if I'm working out more later in the day or on the weekend, they love coming down and just hanging out with me when I'm doing my workout, right? And, like, my son and daughter, they'll, like, troll me when I'm doing, like, I'll be doing this heavy weight, I'll sweat dripping down. Come on, Dad, that's not that heavy, right? Like, it's fantastic. But they're seeing, like, I'm almost 43. They're seeing me put the work in, right? For me, like, if I think of my journey, maybe they were an athlete in high school, and maybe they didn't put on 50 or 60 pounds, but they hit 40 and they're sort of like, okay, like, I'd like to get back in shape, but I don't have a coach. I don't have a routine. I don't have a regime, and I don't have a community. If you're looking to increase your strength, right? I just found that it was such a great program for that too. So, strength, the toning, of course, weight loss, right? Like, if that's what you're trying to do, but it doesn't just do that, right? And getting on point with nutrition, right? Like, if you want to be intentional about your nutrition, there's so many different benefits to the program. It's not just I lost 20 pounds on this program. Okay, what else did you do? You're looking into this because you're at a point in your life where you're taking stock. Like there's something going off in your life. That's why you look into this type of program. In terms of challenging yourself, Coach Robert always says, nothing changes and nothing changes. So you're in good hands and you're going to be in a good community, but you got to take the plunge.